Hi, and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Paul Steele from Bethlehem Church in Austin, Minnesota. Now, The Bottom Line is our weekly summary of the previous Sunday's sermon. Except, as you probably realize, we haven't made one of these videos in a while. Whether it's because of the holidays, or weather, or me being sick, I just have not had the time or the motivation to do one of our Bottom Line videos. But we are still in a sermon series called Lessons from the King as we look at the Sermon on the Mount. And on Sunday, I looked at Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 18. And in this section, Jesus is addressing certain religious practices that today we would call spiritual disciplines. And what Jesus is after is for us to examine the reason we do these activities, these practices, these disciplines. And 3 different times, as Jesus talks about giving and prayer and fasting, 3 different times, Jesus says something like this: don't do as the hypocrites do. Don't follow their example. Now, that word hypocrite is the Greek word that means actor, play actor. And what Jesus is saying is that when you do these spiritual disciplines, don't just play the part of a righteous person, right? This goes back to when Jesus says that to be a citizen of the kingdom, our righteousness needs to be greater than that of the Pharisees. So Jesus is saying, don't just play the part of a righteous person. Actually be that type of person who gives, who prays, who fasts. And the motivation here matters, because the motivation of the hypocrite is to receive the approval of people. They want other people to praise them for the good things that they do. Rather, Jesus is saying, you do this to connect with your Father in heaven. You do this to receive a reward from Him. And that is what we have to think about. Who are we doing these spiritual practices for? Who are we doing these spiritual disciplines for? Are we doing them to receive the approval and recognition from people? Because if that's the case, then that's all we will receive. But if we're doing this to connect with God, to mature our faith, then what Jesus says is that we will receive a reward from our Father in heaven. He will reward us. He will recognize us. And we will receive a blessing. We'll receive a blessing now in the form of forgiveness, of spiritual maturity, of provision, of guidance, but ultimately the reward that we will receive is to have a place in His kingdom. We will be a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. So we always have to ask ourselves this question: why do we do the things that we do? Why am I practicing these spiritual disciplines like giving and serving and study and praying and fasting? Why do I do those things? What's my motivation behind them? Now, the answer to that is not to not do them, but to rather do them for the right reasons. And sometimes that requires us asking God to change our heart so our motivation is in the right place. Our big idea from Sunday is this: citizens of the kingdom are to practice spiritual disciplines to receive a blessing from God and not to impress people. Citizens of the kingdom are to practice spiritual disciplines to receive blessing from God and not to impress people. Our motivation matters, and our motivation needs to be a desire to be faithful to God. And our challenge is this: practice a different spiritual discipline this week. Fasting, meditation, giving, study, worship, whatever it is, practice a spiritual discipline that you normally don't practice. And when you do that, ask God to help you to do it with the right motivation. because we may not be able to change our motivation, but if we recognize that it needs to be changed and ask God to help us, then that's what matters, and He's going to come through and bless us by helping us change even at the heart level. Hey, thank you for watching us, and I'm glad that you're part of Bethlehem, and I want to extend this invitation to you to come and be a part of what we're doing here at Bethlehem. So you can join us every Sunday morning at 10:30, either here on YouTube or on Facebook, or better yet, join us in person here in Austin, Minnesota, next to Ellis Middle School. And if you want to partner with us in the work that we're doing here, there's two things you can do. You can pray that we'll have opportunities to make new connections with people who don't know Jesus yet, and you can give. You can go to our website, BethlehemChurchAustin.com, go to the Give tab, follow the instructions. That helps us with the resources we need to make disciples here in Austin. And if there's a prayer request you'd like me to know about and you'd like me to be praying about, send me a note, leave a comment, and I'll be glad to add you to my prayer list. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and God bless.